We begin from Australia. 12 people have died in a shooting in Sydney during a gathering for the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. One of the two shooters is believed to be among those killed. At least 29 people were injured and are currently in hospital.
¿Qué está pasando? ¿Dónde? Alicia, escucha, Alicia, ¿qué está pasando?
Australian police are calling it a terror attack. This is the moment when the gunmen opened fire on Bondi Beach. People were seen running and scattering for their lives. These images are of the immediate aftermath, showing the first responders at the scene of the horrifying attack. Police and ambulances rushed to the site while the police were trying to apprehend the attackers. The medics were helping the injured, rushing them to nearby hospitals. One of the attackers was killed and the other is said to be in critical condition. Police declared the shooting a terrorist incident and revealed they had found suspected improvised explosive devices in a vehicle near the beach that was linked to the deceased offender. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, in a televised address, called the attack a targeted attack on Jewish Australians.
This is a targeted attack on Jewish Australians on the first day of Hanukkah, which should be a day of joy, a celebration of faith, an act of evil anti-Semitism, terrorism that has struck the heart of our nation.
I mean, we need to be in a situation where we're sending a clear and unambiguous message to the Jewish community, in fact every Australian that lives in this state, that these horrible acts of violence will never be tolerated.
Israeli President Isaac Herzog condemned the shooting as a cruel attack on Jews and urged the Australian authorities to step up the fight against anti-Semitism.
We send our warmest strength from here, from Jerusalem, and we repeat our alert time and again to the Australian government to seek action and fight against the enormous wave of anti-Semitism which is plaguing Australian society.
Australia has experienced a string of anti-Semitic attacks on synagogues, buildings and cars since the beginning of Israel's war in Gaza in October 2023. Bondi Beach in eastern Sydney is Australia's most famous beach, drawing huge numbers of surfers, swimmers and tourists, especially at weekends.
And then I started hearing the shots, but at the time we just thought it was like firework or something, or maybe part of the festival that was happening. Then maybe after like, I don't know, 6, 7 shots, we thought, okay, this is weird. And then someone started running. And we all panicked and started running as well, so we left everything behind, like flip-flops, everything. We just ran to the hill.
Investigations are currently underway as the police in New South Wales establish the motive of the attack. One attacker has been killed, the other is said or reported to be in critical condition. Katie Silva is a reporter. She's now joining us live from Sydney. Hi, Katie. There's so much to talk about, but let's zero in on the aftermath. An explosive device was found in the suspect's vehicle. A huge disaster was clearly averted. The investigation has begun. New South Wales police will be looking at what exactly?
Well, at the moment, there's still questions about whether or not there was just limited to these two attackers. The one that you say, as you say, has died, and another that is in critical condition. There was questions at the press conference about whether or not there might be a third attacker. And we do understand as well, sources have told ABC, the public broadcaster, that they have been conducting searches on one of the attackers that they have been able to name on his home, which is about an hour and a half or an hour or so drive from Bondi Beach. So we understand they'll be looking towards motive. They'll also probably be looking into why they didn't identify one of these attackers earlier. So we understand one was known to police, but when they were questioned in the press conference about how this averted authorities, they said the problem was that they only knew about one of them. They didn't know about one of these other people, and therefore they weren't surveilling him and monitoring him. So that's probably also part of the question now. The other part of all of this that the security chief has recognised, as well as part of the press conference, is the necessity to avoid any sort of follow-up attacks. And so therefore they're going to be very, very vigilant in the days ahead, because that is certainly a concern, especially given how incendiary this issue is now, particularly when it comes to whether it's anti-Semitism or the challenges that people here feel when it comes to the war in Palestine.
Katie, every nation and leader condemning this terror attack has a common phrase: the rise of anti-Semitism in Australia. How big is the problem, and what measures has the Australian government taken to stem it?
It really depends who you speak to. I mean, there was an inquiry into anti-Semitism that was delivered earlier this year, about the middle of the year. And of course, all of this stems from October 7 and what has gone on subsequently in Palestine. There have been mass rallies in support of the people of Palestine. Really, really significant. For example, Sydney's Harbour Bridge was closed. I want to say tens of thousands of people walked across it in a march in terms of solidarity with the people of Palestine. And that does seem to potentially be skewing amongst some of the population into anti-Semitism. So that has been a concern. It was raised as part of this report. Critics say that the government hasn't done enough in response to this report, and whether that certainly is something that people are going to be looking at and questioning in the coming days. But it is certainly something, anti-Semitism is on the rise in many countries around the world, given the events in Israel and in Gaza.
Katie, finally, I know you are in Sydney. What is the situation at the moment? It's now dark there. Has the beach been closed?
Yeah, so it's past midnight here. It's getting closer to 1 a.m. So Bondi, without a doubt, people have been told to stay home and to get out of the area that was, as you can see here, the pictures of people fleeing earlier in the night. So it does seem that the civilians have been taken out of that area. Police have cordoned off the area, particularly as well that part where you mentioned where an IED was found. So people are certainly not on the streets, but this recovery effort continues. And the only other issue that I will raise is that there's a lot of wind at the moment in Sydney, and apparently that is hampering some of the efforts in Bondi Beach, because sand is actually even blowing into some of those rescue and recovery efforts that are ongoing. But this is certainly something that's going to be continuing throughout the night. I don't expect we'll have any further information from authorities until the morning, but it is something that is going to be continuing, no doubt, in the coming days as well.
Katie Silva is a reporter. She's in Sydney. Katie, thank you very much for talking to us today.